Today, we're going to talk about higher education, and in our community, we're really fortunate to have a number of really excellent opportunities for higher education. And with that, our children have the opportunity to choose to stay right here after high school, to go to college. Also, non-traditional students, like perhaps many of us in this room, can also have easy access to additional education. Also, one of the top business issues that the Chamber has repeatedly heard from our membership is about workforce development. So today's conversation is really important one, and I think it's the right one that we're going to have. Looking forward to really getting into that. All right, before we get to the guests, I wanted to explain the format for the rest of the program. I'm going to introduce each of our speakers, and following their introduction, they're going to give us a brief presentation about their institution. And once they've all had that opportunity, then we'll have a roundtable discussion about a variety of topics relating to higher education and its impacts on the business community. Our first presenter is Columbia Basin College President, Dr. Rebecca Woods. Dr. Woods became the 6th president for Columbia Basin College in November of 2017. And prior to joining CBC, she was the provost at Jackson College in Jackson, Michigan. She has over 20 years of experience in higher education. President Woods earned her PhD in organizational leadership and a Juris Doctor from Regent University. She serves on various local boards and organizations, including TriDec, Visit Tri-Cities, Washington STEM Education Foundation, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Benton Franklin counties, and more. She believes in the transformational power of education and is committed to meeting the educational needs of the Tri-Cities and helping all students succeed at CBC. Please help me welcome Dr. Rebecca Woods.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I love to start these presentations by asking if you would indulge me. Can you raise your hand if you went to CBC or somebody in your family? I love it! Awesome. Okay. So you were all Hawks. So later when I hear, you know what, right? Yeah. All right. I just want to also hear Go Hawks, okay? All right. All right. So, Columbia Basin College, just a big picture overview of our institution. We serve about 10,000 students each year. You'll hear in an upcoming slide and probably later on, obviously enrollment with everybody's been going up and down the last few years. We offer over 100 different programs that can be anywhere from one of our 53 certificates, workforce certificates, so folks can leave in less than the time it would take to do a 2-year degree and still have a workforce credential that they can step into a good paying job in our community. We also have 9 different baccalaureate programs, and we have number 10 and 11 underway that are under development right now. We're working on a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science, as well as we just approved the development of a new bachelor's program in respiratory therapy. And those are the programs because our community has come to us and said, we need this, and so those are the programs we're going to start and offer. We also work very hard to ensure that we remain an affordable option for everybody so that everyone in the Tri-Cities can access a post-secondary education. The fact that all of you are here today is just very gratifying to me. We often are hearing now in our society about the perhaps waning value of a post-secondary education, but because all of you are here, and thank you to the Chamber for continuing to highlight and support higher ed, we know how important it is, and it says to me, though, that the Tri-Cities also knows the value and how important it is that our community have access to education beyond high school. So thank you. We are one of 8 Hispanic-serving institutions in Washington State. Heritage University is also one of the 8, and WSU Tri-Cities, if they could stand on their own campus alone, they would also be considered an HSI. So we have been an HSI consistently since 2012. That for a variety of criteria, in essence, means that you enroll at least 25% of your students are Hispanic. This quarter, 49% of our students, so almost half of our student population is Hispanic. In our current strategic plan, which is called Inclusivo, we were very intentional that part of our priorities is to move beyond enrolling Hispanic students and ensure that we are serving our Hispanic students, that they can see themselves on our campus, that we're centering their experience, and that we are supporting them in their succeeding at the same rates as all of our students. So our enrollment right now for fall, so this is our FTE enrollment, so full-time equivalent students. As I said, we certainly went down during COVID, but we were very excited that this fall we have now exceeded where we were pre-COVID. So our head count, we have over 7,600 students on our campus right now. And again, by the end of the year, we will have probably served over 10,000. Again, new programs and degrees, we're only starting programs or changing programs because our community has said that's what's needed. So you can see some of the new programs that have either just launched or those that are under development, new associate degrees, new pathways in existing programs like the fabrication pathway in welding. We have several, and we're always looking at health sciences programs. Again, a huge need across our country and wanting to make sure that we all have access to high-quality healthcare providers. I know that's something that's important to me. And then our most recent program that has not yet launched is a new associate degree in logistics and supply chain. Again, this is because we had business and industry come to us and say this was needed. We had those conversations during the pandemic, so that is currently being developed. Some remodeling renovations that are happening on our campus. Most recently, we just completed the renovation of our library. It was just very dated and not very welcoming for students and not a place that they were utilizing very often. So many of you were able to attend our ribbon cutting. It's really a very beautiful now, airy, well-lit, a lot of comfortable seating, places for students to be studying. One of the things that we're really excited, though, is it has the first family study space. So students, we have lots of students that have children that might be single parents and are struggling with childcare. So we now have a beautiful space, a room where they can have their children with them and still be studying on campus and have access to the resources that we have available. And a huge thank you to Women Helping Women. That was one of the projects that they chose to sponsor this year and to help us be able to fund that. What we currently have under development is a new equity center. So we're we have a $3 million Title V grant that we were able to apply for and receive because of our status as an HSI. And part of the many projects that are taking place through that grant is an equity center on campus. So this is a part of our work in wanting to make sure that we're centering the experience of our Latinx students. So it's what you might think of as a multicultural center, though we're officially going through some naming work right now with students, doing open forums and getting their input as to what it should actually be called. But this will be a space where they can see themselves. They'll see themselves in there, their culture. It'll be a safe where they'll feel safe and welcome, and that they can find a community there that they can connect with. And so this is, again, part of the many strategies that we have underway to ensure that all of our students are succeeding. One of the projects that is upcoming on the horizons is a new performing arts building. So our community and technical college system, we have 34 community technical colleges across the state, goes through a very strategic process for prioritized projects. We're number 2 on that list for a new performing arts building. And so if my crystal ball was working, I would project that it would say July 1, 25 is when we'll probably start construction on this new facility. So it's really going to be a wonderful opportunity for our campus because we have great musical groups, both instrumental, vocal, as well as theater, and we are busting at the seams. And we could also do so much more if we had a larger venue for them to be able to do that. So we're excited to be able to have this coming to our campus. So with that, those are, and the last thing is we are designing a new, a second student housing. So we have Sunhawk Hall just down the road. The last few years, we've had a long waiting list of students waiting to get in there. We have 126 beds, and those have been filled up. So we are in the process of designing what our second housing unit would look like, and we'll begin construction soon, and hope to have that open. So the plan would be fall of 25, so that we can meet the needs of our students in our community and coming to campus. With that, that is the end of my updates. Thank you.
Wow. That was a lot. Thank you, Dr. Woods. A lot going on. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Heritage University President Dr. Andrew Sund. Dr. Sund became president of Heritage in July of 2017. Prior to Heritage, he served as president of St. Augustine College in Chicago. He holds a bachelor's degree in history and philosophy from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a master's degree from Northwestern University, and a PhD in educational policy and administration from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Please help me welcome Dr. Andrew Sund.
Thank you. How is it talking without a podium? I'm not I'm not used to this, but thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you to the Chamber for allowing me to be here. And a couple of brief messages about heritage that I'm going to be. First of all, is to say that in some respects you may consider us the proverbial new kid on the block in the Tri-Cities, because we recently inaugurated a new building. But in other ways, we're not. We have had a partnership with CBC for over 20 years where we've been offering degrees, a variety of our bachelor's degrees and master's degrees at CBC. So in that way, we've had a presence in the Tri-Cities, which is really the reason why we wanted to grow our footprint in this region. Heritage University is very small compared to my colleagues' institutions here, but a very important institution in our region, at least I believe so. We are a private, independent, nonprofit institution, and our origins lie really in the Yakima Valley. Our main campus is right outside Toppenish, inside the Yakima Nation. And we were created for the purpose of serving the community of that region originally. There is a history to that, and our mission statement, I'm not going to read it, but essentially our mission statement states that we are an institution that was created to provide access to higher education for the people of that region. And we are particularly connected to the Yakima Nation because we're located inside the Yakima Nation. However, when Heritage University was created in 1982, a very young institution compared to many others, to make a long story short, is that the Tribal Council of the Yakima Nation actually stated that for historical reasons, the Yakima Nation is an area where many people have chosen to make their home, not only Yakima people. And if we're going to have a university, it should be a university that is for everybody, and it should be a university for everybody in the region and provide access to everybody that desires to fulfill their goals by being a professional. So the way we like to think about it is that Heritage University, we try to see what obstacles exist for people to attend college when they face many other issues in their lives, and we try to overcome those obstacles. The easiest one to explain is financial. If you have no money, very difficult to pay for tuition to go to school, and we've managed to overcome that by offering very sophisticated and powerful financial aid packages. And private institutions, sticker price is higher, but we work with each one of our students to make sure that it's very, very affordable. In fact, the vast majority of our students really do not have to pay out of pocket at all for tuition. The way we do that is we work with the systems that many of you are probably familiar with. There's federal systems like the Pell Grant. The state of Washington has a robust scholarship program called the Washington College Grant. And we do, as private institutions do, a lot of fundraising to cover gaps that students may have, and that way we try to make our institution accessible to the population we've chosen to serve. However, financial obstacles are not the only ones. There's many others that are far more complex to explain, related to cultural issues, social issues, academic preparedness from your high school years and so on, that we also have developed systems to try and help students succeed. And because that's been our goal and our purpose, and we brought that to the Tri-Cities over 20 years ago through our partnership with CBC, is that our profile is what you would expect from that. I mean, our gender profile is about 73% of our students are women, 27% men. This is great. We love that we are supporting so many women to achieve their dreams of higher education, but we are all getting a little worried about the men too. That they're not going to school, particularly in the populations that don't come from populations that traditionally attend higher education, lower income levels and so on, that men are going to work and there's work opportunities, but there's limitations to that, and we're probably going to get to that in the discussion later. So it is a bit of a concern. We love this profile like this, but we are a little bit concerned. Because of the population of the Valley and the Tri-Cities, our students are 69% Latinos, about 12, but it's a little higher now, I think about 14% Native American, and just every other group is the rest represented. Of course, white, but all the other ethnic groups in the United States are represented in our population. And this is why we were created. So this is not unusual. It's a direct result of what we said we would be doing. This is our students match that mission. About 85% of our students come from what are considered low-income families, and about 90% would call themselves first generation in college. We are also, as Rebecca mentioned, we are also an HSI, which is that federal designation that is useful for some grants and a variety of other things, such as Hispanic Serving Institution. We are also a Native American serving non-tribal institution. NASANTI is what we call ourselves. It reads nasty, but that doesn't sound too good. So we call ourselves NASANTI, and there's only 2 in the nation, actually, that have both those designations, being HSI and NASANTI. It's Heritage University, and I forget, State University, Northern New Mexico, maybe Northern New Mexico State or another one, but it's in Northern New Mexico that has those 2 designations, and we're very proud of that, and opens, it's a good descriptor of who we are and what we do. These are our biggest programs, generally speaking, not our only programs at the bachelor's degree level, but social work is very important to us. We have a nursing school that just last year we had the highest passing rate of NCLEX exam in the private schools in the state of Washington, and that includes some very well-known schools like Gonzaga and Seattle University, but Heritage did very, very well, a very powerful and good program. Just went through an accreditation process that went very well. Business and accounting and a variety of programs in the area of business are also a big aspect of our programming. Education, teacher preparation is very important to our mission. And if you go through the Yakima Valley and beyond here in the Tri-Cities, probably every single school district has a Heritage graduate working somewhere in their classrooms or administration or somewhere. And Heritage has played a big role in developing teachers in our whole region. I meant to write criminal justice. I forgot the justice part there. So that's the program criminal. Oh no, it's below. I went to the second line. Criminal justice psychology. That's our other programs that are particularly growing. And interestingly, some of these programs are growing so much that they're also going to become part of our graduate degree programs. These are not all our master's degree program, but our most important ones is we do have a master's in teaching, a couple of different ways of achieving that. One is it's an alternative route to certification for people that have bachelor's degrees in a different area that is not teaching, but they would like to become teachers. They can do that through that program. And there's another more traditional route to do so too. And we also offer the certification for becoming a school administrator, principal, vice principal, and so on. It can lead to a master's degree, but actually you can also do just the certification. And right now we're going to begin this coming summer, we're going to begin 2 additional master's programs in social work and in mental health counseling. And that's a direct result of what the community has been asking us in the Yakima Valley and beyond. Those are the needs. And to be honest, as a small institution, social work is something we've always wanted to develop. We have the BSW, it's a great program. There's a lot of initial costs to establish a master's degree program that were very difficult for Heritage to be able to do, but luckily we got some funding that permits us to have those initial costs covered, and that's why we launch into this process. We have an accreditation visit very soon, knock on wood, that everything's going to go well, and hopefully we will be able to offer those programs in our campus here, and also in various hybrid and remote ways that may be part of the discussion we have later too, those alternative ways of learning that we have nowadays. And finally, of course, most importantly, is that we decided to take a leap in the Tri-Cities, and although we've been very happy working with CBC and the location there, and offering about 5 of our programs during the evenings, mostly at the CBC campus, we just have been doing an analysis and responding to the community needs of the area, that here in the Tri-Cities, the population that looks very much like the population we always served at Heritage is growing in leaps and bounds. And the needs for higher education are growing in leaps and bounds, and we thought we could have a stronger process and contribute to that in this region. A concerning statistic that I don't know if it's changed, but the last time we looked at it, it was about half of the high school graduates in the Tri-City area are not going to any sort of post-secondary institution. So we hope to be able to contribute to that by having a location here that's fully dedicated with classes in the morning, afternoon, evenings, weekends, whenever we can do it, that we will be able to contribute to this region to increase the number of people that are choosing post-secondary education after high school, and therefore be able to participate in stronger levels in the economy of the region. So that's our building. I think it looks really nice. Many of you may know it. It used to be the Tri-City Herald building, and we're leasing space there. Depending on how our project goes, we may grow it or not. It's all part of small institutions. We're a little more entrepreneurial. We sort of test things out. We go, we work, but we've had great response from the community so far. Many people very excited about our location there, and we continue to work at CBC also, because we have particularly, obviously, graduates of associate degrees at CBC that for them it's a seamless process just to stay in the same campus and complete a bachelor's degree with one of the programs we have and CBC does not. So that we're still doing that, and we welcome that collaboration. We inaugurated the building just a couple of months ago or so, and that's just a little view of the inside, and we have great expectations to be a strong player in higher education services for this region. Well, that's sort of the major things we're working on right now, and that's the next presentation, I think. I went beyond. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very proud to represent Heritage and to be part of this community in a stronger way now.
Thank you, Dr. Sun. And finally, we have Washington State University Chancellor, Dr. Sandra Haynes. Dr. Haynes is the 7th Chancellor of WSU Tri-Cities and brings more than 20 years of successful, high-level administrative experience. As a first-generation student, she recognizes the transformative power of higher education and its ability to be a true equalizer for individuals, regardless of life circumstance. Prior to her role as Chancellor of WSU Tri-Cities, she served 17 years at the Metropolitan State University of Denver. Welcome, Dr. Haynes.
I do need to get rid of a little anxiety first. Oh, that was sweet. Okay, now I can speak. All right, so thank you so much for that little tool. I think one of the things, first I'd like to start with, I'm not going to wait, Rebecca, so can we get a big go Cougs? Go Cougs! There we go. Sorry, Rebecca, I had to do it. And I think one of the things that you'll find in common amongst, I guess I'm in control, okay, that you'll find in common with all of our institutions, and so I won't go over it, but one of the things I think that this community should be very proud of is that we have 3 institutions of higher education, WSU Tri-Cities included, that are very focused on workforce development within the Tri-Cities and across the Mid-Columbia region. And we serve this community, truly serve this community, and you can see that in the diversity of our students. We have all very similar diversity, and all of our programs do meet the needs of this community. We do it in slightly different ways, but we are very united in what we do, and we are very similar. So I will start with what is new and unique on the Tri-Cities campus. I guess now, look at there we go. So everybody is always interested in enrollment. We're very pleased to say that this year we were up in enrollment. We had a 0.08, we'll just call it 1% increase in enrollment, but really the most significant statistic that's up there is that we had almost a 26% increase in new students. We had a 6.6% increase in transfer students, and we attribute that largely to the increase that happened at CBC. We are true partners in that. And we had a 7.1 increase in our master's and doctoral programs as well. Again, we had all those increases mirrored our ethnic diversity of the area, and we have 50% of our students, and that's a record number for us, are students of color, and most of those are Hispanic origin. So we continue to see uptick in our minoritized students, and we are thrilled to see that, always thrilled to see that. Let's see, so one of the unique, we are, I guess on the last part of that slide, we are also working on making sure that our retention rates mirror our enrollment rates, because retaining those students is just as important as getting them in the door. So you'll see a big focus on that in the coming years, in this coming year, in some very unique and exciting ways coming up. We don't want people to walk out the door without those important degrees. All right, we are also a research university. We are a R1 university, part of the WSU system, part of 6 campuses. I've stopped using my 6 campus slide because it only shows 5 campuses, and people think I don't know my math, but I do. We have 1 campus that is completely online, and that is our 6th campus. So many of our newest developments on campus have happened this year in the area of research, and so I'd like to highlight those for you. We are very invested in our decarbonized future, and we hard launched our Institute for Northwest Energy Futures this year by hiring our director, Dr. Noel Schultz, who, yes, is married to President Kirk Schultz, but she is a power engineer and has a very distinguished record in energy, and brings that wealth of knowledge to the Institute for Northwest Energy Futures to help us get that off the ground. We also hired an assistant director, our own Jonas Demisi, who is an engineer in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences here on the Tri-Cities campus. And we are getting a physical space, not quite as fancy as the space that you're getting in next year. Ours is a recycled space across the street from campus, but we are delighted to have it, and it's really going to add to our campus. That will house our Institute for Northwest Energy Futures and also become hoteling space for faculty working in Pullman and other campuses with PNNL on our joint institutes. So they will now have a space that they can work in here in the Tri-Cities campus, and it will help with our bringing our system together right here in the middle of our state, and we're very excited about that. We also, one of the very important things that we've done with the Institute of Northwest Energy Futures, even though we hard launched it this year, we soft launched it years ago with a gift from Bob Ferguson. We were able to hard launch it because of the money that we received from the state, the $7.7 million to start this institute. But we've been very pleased to be winners of the inaugural DOE Inclusive Energy Prizes. The DOE Inclusive Energy Prizes are prizes that were put out to specifically address President Biden's Justice 40 goals, which means that 40% of all the money, and there's a lot of money out there floating around for energy and clean energy development, production, etc., 40% of that money needs to benefit underserved populations, which is the biggest shout out that I have ever, or the biggest support that I have ever seen coming from a government agency, putting their money where their mouth is as far as serving underrepresented populations. So this prize was put out to communities to say, how can we best serve your communities? And we submitted our prizes based on education. We said, if you want to serve the communities, the underserved communities of our area, the best way you can do that is give them education in clean energy so that they can get the good, clean energy jobs of the future and have a seat at the policy table in the future as well. And we were successful in winning 2 of those prizes. It was 267 applications the first round, 18 of us won, 18 of us were brought to the second round, and 6 of us won. So we're very pleased with our progress. And again, it shows the power of education to truly transform communities. And actually, in this way, not only by empowering individuals to get better jobs, but also cleaning up our environment, doing something very important for us. The other thing that's happening that's very exciting is happening in our Bioproducts Sciences Engineering Laboratory. In this laboratory, we produce bioproducts such as biodegradable styrofoam. We turn sewage sludge into natural gas. By that time, it does not smell, I promise. We also do research on biodiesel, but the most exciting development now is we are one of the primary sites for sustainable aviation fuel in the country. So we have one of the only testing sites for viability of sustainable aviation fuel right here on the Tri-Cities campus, and we'll be expanding that site into Snohomish County on Payne Field, where we'll have an R&D center and a repository for sustainable aviation fuels. Again, the first in the country to do that. So we're very pleased to have Josh Hine with us, who is one of the premier researchers in that area, and also Mike Wolcott is working with him on the FAA Ascent program that is a national and international effort for sustainable aviation fuel. We also are very pleased to be part of the PNW Hydrogen Hub. That is a new effort. Kate is in the audience and probably don't say much about it because we're in the negotiation phase of this and we don't exactly know how much money we'll get from this, but the Pacific Northwest National Hydrogen Hub will likely bring in close to $1 billion for the state. WSU Tri-Cities will be heading up the community benefits part of the Hydrogen Hub, and that will be our very large contribution to the hub effort. On campus, we are also doing new programs. We're developing programs in cybersecurity and also in social work. As President Sun said, boy, we have a big need, and I can say this as a psychologist, we have a big need for mental health, and it just is not going to go away. And so we need those mental health workers, and so we're very pleased to be starting a BSW and an MSW on our campus as well. So I hope that this shows you that we are committed to finding solutions to the local and global issues, as well as educating, especially our local students, for future careers. And that's it for me. There we go.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Haynes. Very impressive work that you're all doing in slightly different focuses. We're going to shift now, and there's a few questions that we have prepared, and I don't know how secret they are to our panelists here, but we're going to kind of wade into them and just have some conversations. And I'd like to start, I guess, at the most general level, and that is just about what trends you're seeing in education and how they're affecting you and your institutions. And any one of you can start. Any overarching trends that you're watching and responding to?
All right, I'll go ahead and start. We're all looking at each other like, who's going to go first? We could talk about this for the next 6 weeks. So just to hit on a few things, there's lots of conversation, and I kind of hit on it earlier, just trends about the value of education. But I think when that conversation is happening, it tends to usually refer to traditional higher ed, where you are perhaps sitting in a very traditional classroom, semester after semester, term after term. And so a lot of the conversation is talking about making sure that education is very practically oriented, so that when students are graduating and stepping into the workforce, there's already having a lot of work-based learning, practical application, where they're applying what they're learning in the classroom, getting hands-on experience during their education, so that they truly are ready to hit the ground running. Again, that's something that's been very intentional in community colleges in general, just wanting to make sure that that is embedded throughout. One of the things that Columbia Basin College has done very well is been successful in the career launch endorsement that our state offers, and there's a very rigorous process you have to go through, but one of the things you have to show is that there is a required paid work-based learning experience in that program. We are one of the leaders in the state for the number of programs that we have available, but we also, outside of that, we have lots of partnerships that we have in the community, a couple that are immediately coming to mind. We have a co-op arrangement, as I know WSU Tri-Cities does as well, with CPC-Co and WRPS, ensuring that we are having students that are going to be working with them during their education, so that they're, you know, it's however long it's a 6-month interview or what have you, but they're getting a lot of practical application and exposure to what the work really looks like. We also have a Career Connect Tech program in partnership with Pasco School District. So it's located out of New Horizons, but those students are working on their high school credential at the same time that they're working on their associate degree. They can choose either our cybersecurity program or our computer science program, but part of that, again, is a required work-based learning experience, required paid internship during their time in that program. When this had been worked on for a few years, and there were 3 programs across the state that were trying to get launched. When we actually went to launch, we were the only ones that were able to get started, and that is only because of the employers in our community that were absolutely willing to step up and say, yes, we'll provide those work-based, those paid work-based learning experience for students. And we'll also put them, in essence, at the front of the line when they graduate for the positions that we have open for them to be able to interview and, you know, transition into a regular job with us. So again, our success is always because of the supportive community that we have here in the Tri-Cities.
I think that's right. I would say just a little addition to what Rebecca said. The value of higher, you can't turn on the TV without having a questioning of what is the value of higher education. And clearly there's a value to higher education in many ways. You end up making a whole lot more money in your lifetime, statistically speaking, with a higher education than you do with a high school degree. It's good for people's health, and it's good for the general community. It's always good, in my opinion, to have a well-educated citizenry. It helps in many ways, keeps people out of prison, and helps people live more fulfilled lives. So I think that's something that's very important. It's something that often gets overlooked in the debate. But what I do think needs to happen is that higher education, and particularly traditional higher education, as Rebecca said, needs to take a close look at itself and say, are we offering the things in the ways that they need to be offered, that meet the needs not only of the workforce of today, but the workforce of tomorrow. So we need to look at how and when we do offer those skills. We get kind of tied up in the college is an 18 to 22-year-old sport, and it isn't necessarily. You're going to need to have education across the career life cycle, especially because we don't know what the jobs of tomorrow are necessarily. So we need to focus on making sure that we are ready when students need us, and we need to make sure that we have the capacity to upskill and reskill. And I also think that one of the things that we should be thinking about is, when we're looking at a more traditional higher education, that we're actually also pre-skilling students. By giving students the basic education that they get in a 4-year degree, we're giving them the critical thinking skills, the communication skills, the ability to work in teams, and all those things that they're going to need regardless of what their job is. So we're pre-skilling them for jobs, and sometimes, often actually, for jobs that we don't know will exist in the future.
Well, I guess I'll build a little bit on what both my colleagues have been saying here. Number one, I think a trend that we all are seeing, our three institutions represent very well, is that the way students look today and in the future is very different from the way they did before. The trend is that students are becoming older as they go to school, and they are coming from more varied backgrounds, which is welcome, and our institutions represent that very well. And it has impacts on the way we deliver our education, and we have to think about that. Another area that perhaps you may not be thinking about that is a bit of a trend, a little closer to my heart as part of a small private institution, is that we're seeing several small private institutions closing nationwide. And I think it relates, there's several factors around this, but it relates to what we're talking about, the issue that students going to school now are looking for degrees that are going to prepare them for the workforce of today and tomorrow and the future. And small private schools have traditionally been very sort of what we call the liberal arts oriented, teaching philosophy like my major, and literature and so on. And we are still looking for the right balance in higher education, I believe, of what's the right approach. We want to prepare people for the workforce, but there's something to be gained by having a breadth in your education and understand, have some time when you're young to think about the big questions of life. But a trend that we're seeing is that many schools are not doing that transition very well. I'm hoping that at Heritage we are moving in the direction where we understand what our students need, want, and desire, and what the workforce desire from them, and we're preparing our programs that way, but trying to think about how we provide that level of education that creates the informed citizens that we all need for a developed society. On a completely different note, I was thinking, although we may come back to that later, of course technology is another major thing that's changing in all our institutions and making us question what is education. Lately, what's been in the news, of course, is artificial intelligence and ChatGPT that can write papers for you. And that's bringing very fundamental questions about how do we teach and assess the work of students. The days where you would give students at the beginning in a history class a term paper to write for a semester, choose a topic at the beginning and give me a term paper at the end, and that we have this expectation, right, that they're going to read several books, analyze, summarize, come with ideas, develop those ideas in a paper, and that all is going to be original work. Well, I mean, there's very little value to that you can trust that that's going to happen. There's some interesting questions happening in higher ed, whether that really happened before. Plagiarism was still an issue before, but it could be more of an issue now. But how do we use these new technologies to support education is a major topic now that all the conferences that I've attended in the last year have some spaces to think about that. There's areas, a very interesting talk that I listened to, but I did not understand everything about it, but very interesting how it can be, how AI can provide instructional support, tutoring, how students could submit in a writing class. You may have a professor, but you have this artificial intelligence tutor that you could be submitted your writing and learns from the mistakes you're making and can help you build your writing and improve on it. So there's ways in which artificial intelligence will become the norm in higher education and also on the administrative side and jobs and so on. But these are questions that faculty at Heritage are asking themselves. What assignments are adequate in this new world? And it's changing completely how we relate with students and how we relate with technology and the outside world.
Yeah, I'll just add about AI, because this isn't something we ever talk about. I think like every faculty senate meeting for months and months, it was just the topic of conversation. And so it's a really difficult topic to grapple with. For us, we now have a work group that is in essence, studying the issue, trying to figure out what is an institutional response to this, because it does have to be a balance. Yes, ideally, students are not using it to write their papers, so they're actually learning the skills themselves and how to do that work. But we absolutely also have to be teaching them at the same time how to use it. It's going to impact all of our jobs, all of us. I've used it. And we have so many administrators in different positions on campus that are finding efficiencies in their work because of access now to these new technologies. So graduating students without an exposure to it and understanding of it, how they can use it to do the jobs that they are preparing for, to use it well, we would be doing a disservice to them. So we need to, at the same time, make sure that we are balancing, obviously, the academic integrity issues with teaching them how to use these tools. It would be the same thing if we weren't, as you know, once calculators came out, we didn't want them to learn that. We wanted them to still do their work and learn it on the slide rule. So we absolutely have a responsibility to find the right balance to use artificial intelligence in an intelligent way on campus and with our students.
I have to say I have not used it yet. I've resisted.
Oh, you are missing out, Andrew. Oh,
I've resisted, but I know I'm not going to last much longer.
Don't resist it.
So it sounds like AI, as we know, is probably in the emerging stages at this point. And it sounds like at least CBC and Heritage are in the evaluation and watching phase. But WSU has a bit more, I guess, depth into research and things like that. Do you have any different perspective on the use of AI and any formal plans? I hate to put you on, well, I don't hate to put you on the spot.
No, I'm sorry. We're all, as higher education, grappling with this and how we're going to do it. I think one of the interesting, I agree with the whole idea of it is here. We need to be able to use it and use it as a teaching tool. I'll give you just a quick example of one of the ways that I have used it. I did a speech, a welcome back speech, and part of my welcome back speech was to talk about our 35th anniversary, which is coming up this year. And so I thought to myself, boy, I better know and kind of talk a little bit about what's happened in the last 35 years. And so I went and I started my speech, and I said, at the turn of the century, we had Y2K, and we went through 9/11, and we went through the wars, and we went through all of this stuff, and look where we are, and now we have ChatGPT. Of course, I had students in the audience, and I said, and I just want you to know that the last 2 paragraphs of my speech were written by ChatGPT. And for the students in the audience, can you tell me what was wrong with that? Well, I said 35 years, and I started at the turn of the century. So it's using the Chat GPT and the artificial intelligence to actually teach the critical thinking skills. It's not just saying you can spit this out and turn in your paper, because you can't, because I'm not going to be able to do the math, but I missed several years in my speech. It was only 23 years and not 35 years. So, and people could have been able to catch that. So it is, how do you look at artificial intelligence and put the human in it and do the fact checking and use your critical thinking skills? So it's the same things that we're trying to teach students all along. It's making sure that they know to do that in this new environment as well.
Thank you. So online learning has been a thing for many years now. But with the pandemic, had a huge boost, and I think was kind of transformative. What are you seeing in terms of the balance between online education and in-person, and where do you see that headed?
We'll start a different order. No, Heritage University was always very much an on-campus institution before the pandemic. We always had an online presence from the very beginning. There were a few courses online and particularly the graduate level. But of course, like many other institutions in 2020, we had to pivot overnight to online learning. And there were doubts about whether we could do this at all, and somehow, like everybody else, we managed. What has that, and we tried to go back to campus as soon as we could after, and I think we started with some courses fall of 21, my colleagues, am I correct? Fall of 21 when we started, although many people were still working from home, and but we began to have some presence on campus, and it's been our thought that many of the students who choose to come to Heritage, or all the students that choose our institution, is because they are looking for some part of that campus experience, of the social relations that are part of being in a place in presence. However, we are a very different institution from the pre-pandemic anyway. Most classes now, we consider them normal, but it's what would have been called hybrid in the past, because they don't meet regularly the way they used to. There is significant interaction between students and faculty that it's happening online. And that is not something we planned for. It was not part of our strategic planning for Heritage University, but it's a reality of where higher education is right now, and that we are a part of that, that although I believe that we belong in a certain world where having a presence on campus will remain to be an important aspect of who we are, we cannot move away that there's going to be online degrees, there's going to be hybrid degrees, and there's going to be new, different ways of interacting through all this communication systems that we're really only beginning to understand.
I would say that we have an online presence as well, but it is through our global campus, not necessarily through WSU Tri-Cities. But as I have watched over the past 3 years, has it been 3 years since we got back? Yes, or 2.5, okay. It's interesting to see that when students and even some faculty first came back, they wanted more online. They resisted the quick transition, and then when they came back, they wanted to stay online. And gradually over the last couple of years, we've seen more and more people not wanting to be online. They've wanted to come back and have that campus experience. I agree with what you said. There will always be people who will want for that online degree for any number of reasons. Convenience, being able to be at USC and take your classes while you're here in the Tri-Cities, for example, someone I know. But there will always be the need for online classes, but I do think that there will never not be, can I use a double negative there, the need for the on-campus experience. It's very powerful and very important, and we go back to something that President Wood said earlier. It also doesn't allow as easily, you can do it, but it doesn't allow as easily for that hands-on experience that is so valuable not only to the workforce of the future, but to the education itself of students, that actually working hands-on things, especially through internships, but also in a classroom. You just can't do that as well online, and that's been shown in some studies. You can do it, just not quite in the way that students learn best.
Yeah, just CBC's perspective. So pre-COVID, we had about 25% of our classes were taught online and the remainder were face-to-face. I don't think we'll ever get back to that percentage. We've had students and faculty who would have never considered online education, obviously had no choice. It's, you know, especially if you're a working adult with a family, incredibly flexible, and faculty that perhaps just didn't have a reason to pursue it and learn it, you know, obviously had no choice. And during COVID, so many wonderful new tools that were perhaps considered the exception that institutions would use are absolutely now considered the norm. And so online learning can be done really, really well. We're in the process of just analyzing the data that we've just received from the student survey, where we did, one of the questions we were asking them is, you know, how many of you chose, you know, one of the three, online, hybrid, or face-to-face, and then is that what you wanted? Were you looking for more of one or the other, so that we truly can see what is the right mixture of class offerings and modalities that we should be offering to them. There absolutely are always going to, and all students are not created equal, so that kind of learning style doesn't work well for all students. Some students that did, were in high school during the pandemic, now perhaps are more comfortable with that, but that's not necessarily best for them because they don't necessarily have the same level of social interaction, that skill level that they would have otherwise. So I've talked to some parents where they're pushing them to get into the classroom, be face-to-face with your instructors and your classmates. And we know that we need to have, for students though, to want to be back on campus, we need to have a vibrant campus environment. We were excited this year when we again saw, students circling the parking lot trying to find that spot. That was a good thing for us because that said, okay, we now have that robust, really critical mass back on campus again. But so all of these different modalities, again, because of COVID, it's one of the learnings that we're all using to improve what we did anyway pre-COVID and really being able to do it better.
I'd like to add one thing about this that I think is important. It's true of our three institutions, but which is when you work with significant numbers of people that come from low-income environments and or first generation in college, there is an equity issue related to online learning. And what we saw, Heritage, we pivoted to online learning during the pandemic, and we did very well. But we do work with a population that's commuter. They're not living on campus, and they live in small homes with multi-generations in there, multiple generations, with limited internet access, not great access in very remote rural areas, that did not make intellectual pursuits easy. If you're in a house with little brothers and sisters and grandparents watching TV, and the dining room table is the only workspace in that home, it's not the best place for intellectual pursuit. And those students choose to go to campus, spend the day there in the library and so on. So that's something that we have to wrestle with as these opportunities are coming. They're not always equitable for everybody. A nice anecdote was a professor mentioned during the pandemic that they were teaching a class and they had one student sitting at her dining room table doing the work, and suddenly mom showed up and says, "You got to turn your computer off, it's dinner time. We're going to set the table." So
one of the things that I think a number of you mentioned in terms of selecting the programming and the educational opportunities that your institutions provide was really talking to industry and things like that. And I think before our conversation, I believe it was Dr. Sun, we were having a conversation about that topic. And when we were in college a long time ago, there was no discussion with industry about what to offer. So I'm curious about how you go about setting the offerings that your institutions provide, and who do you talk to, and what kind of industry interactions do you have in order to make those kind of decisions?
Oh, it's my turn to start. Okay, so we do just like any good strategic plan. We do an environmental scan and we look at where the jobs are in the areas where our students come from. So for us, 85% of our students will come from Benton and Franklin County, and most of them will stay here. So we look at that area pretty strongly. I'm sure other institutions look more broadly, but we want to serve this region absolutely. So we look at where those jobs are. We also have very strong relationships with industry. As President Woods said earlier, this community is amazing when it comes to industry participation. They want to be involved with education and they want to talk to us. I have a very strong advisory council made up of industry leaders, and we talk to them on a regular basis about what is needed. I saw, maybe he's disappeared now, but Paul Carlisle was in the room. He is constantly involved with industry in developing what is our continuing education program, which is called Cougar Tracks, and we work directly with them. We sit down with industry leaders and say, we want to help you, and you help us develop a curriculum, and then we'll sit down with them and decide what are those key points that need to be made in the classroom. What exactly are you looking for? Now, those are our non-credit programs, and that's easier, but with our credit programs, we also do the same thing. We want to make sure that all of our programs have industry advisory boards specific to their industries that can come and advise them and say, these are the skills that we're looking for. We also seek feedback from our internship sites. How did our interns do? What could we do better in preparing them for your internships, et cetera. So we are in constant contact with industry, and again, we are so grateful for the generosity of the industry in this area.
I could just say ditto to a lot of that. Absolutely. We try to be very present in the community, in every organization, every board that is out there, so that we're at the table hearing what the needs are. I mean, you just heard in the updates several times where we have this new program because we heard this. And we have advisory committees for all of our programs so that we have business and industry, those that are actually doing the job, staying in and day out, being the ones to tell us, this, maybe a graduate coming out, they're not having this skill, so we need to change the curriculum here, or we need to add this new program there. So we're able to move pretty quickly. We have a lot of flexibility and agility to start programs quickly, to pilot classes. Again, it's one of our pride points that we're very responsive to the needs of the Tri-Cities.
Yeah, I agree with everything said. I could just add, I mean, we also look at what we believe the workforce needs are, and the only other elements I would add for a small institution like Heritage is that we also look at our own capacity. What are the areas in which we can participate? I mentioned we're developing 2 programs that are ready to start in this coming summer in social work and mental health counseling. We believe that's an area that we can participate in because we have experience, we have faculty, there's other more perhaps technological areas that Heritage is not the ideal institution. We do venture there, but we're not the ideal institution to develop that. And then we also look what our students want to do. It doesn't always fit exactly what the workforce wants and what students want to study, and we need to find that balance and create those spaces for that to develop.
So just one quick thing on that too, is that, we work in tandem. We work very well together. I hope my colleagues agree with that. We work very well together. And so if, for example, we've been working for years on engineering transfer program with Heritage University. So you might not have the technology, but you can certainly start there and transfer in. So I think having the 3 different types of institutions of higher education right here in the Tri-Cities is a real bonus, because we can work together to provide what the students and what industry needs.
Yeah, I'll just brag on us for a minute. Just that absolutely, we work really well together. WSU and CBC, our leadership teams meet together. A couple, try to do it quarterly, and we're always talking about what new programs are you thinking about, how could that, transfer into something you already have. We try to make sure we're not duplicating, programs, or how can we make the transfer process more seamless for our students? What are we hearing? What are their barriers? So it's absolutely a collaborative effort to make sure that the Tri-Cities has access to educational opportunities and that our students are getting through.
That's great, thank you. Well, I have a lot more questions, but we're running out of clock time. So I'm going to, final question, and that is really, you're sitting in a room full of business people. Is there anything that you would ask the business community that would help you in your mission? And is there any other topics that you came here with a burning desire to talk about that you haven't had a chance to address yet?
Okay, I'll start. I'm managing this too closely. Well, if this is the last question, well, thank you, of course, for the opportunity to be here. In terms of connecting with all businesses in the area, we love that. As a university, we want to be engaged with you. We want to understand what your needs are. We also want you to get to know us so that you can also promote the programs that we have, the things that we're doing in the Tri-Cities, so that we can continue to have that sort of synergistic relationship where we are serving the business community, and the business community is supporting the universities in the region. There's a variety of ways of doing, but communication is number one. I did want to mention one other sort of what last topic comes to mind is that we've mentioned a couple of times how we need to prepare students for the workforce of tomorrow, is not just today, and how and we often talk in this kind of settings about how nobody has a career anymore, that you graduated when you're 22 years old and that's what you do until you're 67 now, I think, or 72 or something, and that now you're changing careers completely every few years, and that higher education should perhaps be adjusting to that a little more. And I think to a degree we're all doing. We talk about, getting short certificates or additions to your programs and so on. But something to mention to the business community here is that at least at Heritage, perhaps for the uniqueness of being a private institution, it's often difficult to work with our oversight bodies, with government entities, accreditation entities, in developing programs that are not the traditional bachelor's degree. In terms of creating financial aid packages, you need to be degree seeking, and in terms of how accreditation looks at us. So we all need to be working together for higher education to transform itself and truly serve the needs of tomorrow in different ways that is not the traditional 18 to 22-year-old. It's not just us inside the university that need to change, but it's really the whole society needs to be working together so that we find different ways of evaluating if we're doing a good job or not. It's not just retaining students to the bachelor's degree. It's preparing them for the workforce of today and the future. And that may have a different look than the traditional 4 years when you're 18 years old.
So I guess the request would be just continuing to be collaborative with all of us on the stage and working together to meet the needs of our community. That communication piece is key. And it's also not just what the needs are, but giving us feedback on how we're doing. So if, you're having great success with a program, with graduates coming out, with, being able to meet your employee needs, we'd love to hear that. But if you're not, if there are challenges, things that you're struggling with, absolutely, we want to hear from you. We know people, so if you reached us directly, we'd probably be able to help solve some of those challenges that may exist that we might not be aware of. So just having that two-way communication and being able to be good partners together to meet the needs of our community is key for us.
I think both of those statements were really well done and really well said, and I would agree with both. And I think the equity can't be overlooked. I think that's an extremely important piece, and we're doing that too. Anna Plemons is in the audience today, and we're doing she started our Equity Academy to do exactly that. Look at the individual classes to make sure all students are succeeding in the same way with the data. So I think one of the things that I would just say is that the help and understanding, or helping us all to understand that all of us are necessary, all of the higher education institutions are necessary, and not just the people that are sitting up here, but the apprenticeship programs and everyone that's doing post-secondary credentialing. It's not an either-or proposition, it's an all-in proposition, and it's all important. And as President Sun said, sounded like sunset. Sun said it's also something that is going to be necessary over a career life cycle, not just at a point in time. There's an old saying, and I like to say it because I think it's really important, in that a higher institutions cannot just be in a community, they must be of a community. And so we really think of ourselves as partners, and we want to be partners with you in many ways. And they may be ways that are outside of the box that you may not think we're partners. Clearly we want to be partners in education, and we want to be partners with you in workforce, but we also want to be partners in helping to solve some of the critical issues of our community. For example, our advisory committee is currently looking at how can the companies and the university come together to provide childcare. I don't know that we'll solve that, but we're thinking about that for our community because we're all a part of the community. And so I would just say, partner with us, help us think outside the box, and help us be the great community that we know we are.
Well, great. As we wrap up, I would like to thank our panel, Dr. Rebecca Woods, Dr. Andrew Sund, and Dr. Sandra Haynes. Appreciate you joining us today. And thank you to the Tri-Cities Chaplaincy for sponsoring today's luncheon. And also thanks to the staff of the Red Line Hotel and Conference Center, Pasco. And of course, thanks to each and every one of you for being here today. Thanks and have a great day. And let me just remind you that the Chamber doesn't have a luncheon scheduled for December, so this is our last one of the year. We will see you in 2024. Have a great day.